Hello all and welcome to Economic Board Games, the channel. Today I'm going to be going through Peak Oil, the board game, and giving you an overview. And this is a game about crisis and profit, brought to you by Two Tomatoes. And we got the designers, where are they? At the bottom here. Now this is a proper economic game I've got for you today, and here we are. So you've got this lovely map, very simplistic looking, and let's go through what is happening. So you will start with a company. Here we go, let's go through this one, if I can pronounce that. Platypus Petroleum. You'll have two agents to begin with and a barrel, and it's pretty straightforward as to what you do on your go. You've got step 1 and step 2, and then if you pay 2 barrels, you can see right at the bottom you get to reassign an agent, which is kind of like an extra action. So you're essentially a company and you're a CEO trying to expand and invest in technologies of the future, because oil is running scarce and you need to be prepared. It takes about 45 minutes to 60 minutes, I'd say, so quite a nice short game and quite meaty as well to get a lot done in that time. So let's go through how you do an action then. So orange here, first thing you do, step 1, is take an action or reassign an agent. So there's no agents on the board yet, so you take one of these and you're going to plonk it on any of these actions at the bottom. So let's just go for this one first, and you can see what that does. So they've placed an agent. The second thing you can do is reassign an agent. So you could move an agent from your headquarters here, or you could move an agent that you have on the board somewhere else. The third thing you can do, as I say, is you can pay 2 barrels, which is very expensive because these barrels act as oil and as your currency, and you can see one of the barrels there. So let's say for step 2, we move this one and we go to expand, and I'll sort of go through what that does shortly. Next player goes, again, step 1, reassign. Now let's just assume that they did have a yellow on the board and it was already on expand. They couldn't actually do the action because this is a area control majority type game. You can have a maximum of up to 5 of these agents on the spot, and whoever has the majority, or if you're tied, gets to take the action. In this case, yellow would not be able to take that action, so maybe they'd want to consider reassigning it. So let's say they go to develop, and then for step 2 they get to, how's that got there? Step 2, let's just say they go and put it on invest over here. Greens go and they decide, right, I'm going to go over to expand, and they put both their agents. And then it carries on going clockwise, so now we can actually show you what these do. So take an action, oranges. So they are tied at the moment for this expand one, which means when you're tied, you can only do one of the 2 options. If they did have the majority, they could do both. Now, what have you got? Expand. So you can recruit, which is basically getting yourself an extra agent, which is great, gives you more power later on. Or dispatch is where you can use the agents currently there and you can move them to another spot and immediately do that action. Once you've used them, they go back to your headquarters at the bottom here. So that's how you expand, recruit and dispatch. Next option we got is develop. So you can go drilling for oil. So you've got a choice of these 3 cards here, and they get replenished from this pack. Now what do these cards mean? So at the top you can see that little star, which is a security symbol, and there's a couple of those at the top, and they let you flip these tokens on the board, which will make a lot more sense shortly. But essentially these let you put oil onto those areas of the board, and you can see the little black symbol here means you just take an oil from the bag. You don't have to pull the oil, which is a slight difference. And you can see the question mark there gives you an option as to whether you want to pull an extra one from the bag. And there's a risk to doing so, because as you take oil from the bag, this is kind of the supply of oil in the game, and it varies on player counts. You can see here in a 2-player game, if I can focus, you're going to get 18 black, 2 yellow and 2 red. Now what do they mean? So red and yellow are PR disasters, and these are just on the corner here, and they bring a bit of variety to the game. So for example, level 1, without me shaking the camera too much. If you have to take this public scrutiny, you're going to get -1 VP if you've still got it at the end of the game, and you may not spend security chips and take a shipping action on the same turn. So it kind of limits you. And the way to get rid of those is the next option, which is whitewash. So you can remove those PR crisis. So where was I? We were looking at these barrels. So if you pull a red barrel, you undertake a PR crisis and you put the red barrel back in the bag. If you pick a yellow one, you do exactly the same thing, but you then remove the yellow one from the bag. So they slowly diminish, but the reds stay in there. And as the blacks run out, when the last one's gone, that triggers peak oil. And that kind of triggers the last round where you do, I'll go through what you do. So drilling, that's how you get oil on the board. And more importantly, you can see these coloured symbols at the bottom. If that focuses, that is a, what colour is that one? Is that red or purple? And you've got blue, and they've got the icons to differentiate as well. And that's the technologies you're investing in. So on the far right here, you can see there's 5 types of technologies you're investing in. And if I can kind of go sideways, you can see you've got agro-polymers, tidal power, SPMR, and so on. And the way, I might as well tell you now how scoring works. At the end of the game, you're basically set collecting these symbols through the oil cards we've just shown. So when you go drilling, so say if you have 5 of, let's do the blue ones, tidal, so you got 5 of those, and depending on how many oil symbols, or how many, let me just grab a few. So if there's only 1 on there, it's literally going to be 1 times the number of these you have acquired, plus these technologies, which I'll go through as well. There doesn't happen to be any tidal ones out there, but I've made that a lot more confusing than it sounds, but I'll go through it again. So we've done develop, you can go and drill for oil, and you can get rid of PR crisis. Next one is invest. So this is where you buy these startups here, and these add to your set collection at the end of the game, and that's pretty important. You can, if you don't like any of the top ones, you can reshuffle them and they get replenished as well, so you can put new ones out. And technologies, that is where you pay a barrel from your own company and you add it to any of these technologies, and that kind of makes them more expensive for others to buy. So say for example, if, what have we got, purple at the top, say if there was 4 barrels on this one, it would cost you 4 barrels to buy this technology, which is a lot of money. With next, the last option is grey ops. So you can see there's a little barrel symbol, meaning you have to put a barrel on to one of these pirate symbols, which is the black market. Now, if all 5 are ever full, that oil goes onto the board, which is crucial, and that'll make sense in a second once I finish this action. And finally, you've got consultants, and that is at the top here, some really nice extra moves and actions you can use throughout the game. So let's give you one. Headhunter, so it's worth a VP as well. Place on your HQ one of your agents from the supply, or you've got the cover-up specialist. When you use the develop whitewash option, you may additionally remove 1 face-down PR crisis. So there's loads of nice juicy benefits, and there's loads of extra ones out of the game as well. So that was grey ops. Now the final option is shipping, and this is kind of the important aspect, because as you drill for oil at the bottom, you move oil onto the board, and you can see on the Gulf region we've got 2 oil drums there. Now if someone decides to go onto the Gulf region, so not only have you got these options at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can actually take your agents to the black spots on the board, and what you're trying to do is transport this oil. So for example, 2 oil, you could transport it along this white line. I'll go through what that token says in a minute, and you could take it to this area here, Singapore. Now they are demanding currently the top number, the larger one, which is free oil, and you can provide that. You can't provide more, but you're essentially shipping those 2 oil to Singapore, and you are going to get that oil onto your HQ, having delivered it as money, for example. Now this token here means that along your journey, the question mark means you're going to have to take, or pull should I say, 1 oil from the bag, and if that happens to be a red one, you're gonna have to do a PR crisis, or yellow, and if it's a black, you've got away with it. But that's how the oil diminishes as you move this oil, and then you will flip this token here, and you can see it kind of says what's on the back of it as well. So it'll be 2 question marks on the next one, and you can see you flip this as well, and it'll be a demand of 2 on the next one. Now you can use these security tokens, which are really handy, to flip these any tokens you want, one for another. And you can see, looking around the board, if you wanted to transfer oil from Nigeria, if there was oil there, you'd have to go along these white lines, and you could choose either to take it to the Philadelphia at the top or Rotterdam there. And you have to face these tokens as you go along. So this skull means one of your oil from Nigeria would have to go onto one of these black market spots, and when they're full, remember, all that oil then comes back on to the board, if I can focus that properly. And that is pretty much all the actions. Now once peak oil is reached, as I say, when all the black oil are out of the bag, you all get one more go of doing all your options on these actions here, and then you do scoring. So let me try and do a better example of scoring. So I'll take some oil and I'll put it on. Let's go for the pink one at the bottom, and let me just hunt for some pink cards. There we are, we've got 2 of them. So literally at the end of the game, you're going to add up how many pink symbols you got. So you got 2. You're going to look at the technology that's been invested in. There's 2 barrels, so that's a sum of 4, and you're going to multiply it by how many of these cards you have, which is currently 1. So 4 times 1 is 4 victory points. You do start the game with one of these random cards here, which kind of is secret, and it gives you a bit of focus as to what industries you might be going for, because everything else can pretty much be seen by all other players. So when you buy one of these technologies, they kind of know you're going for it, and equally if you start loading up your barrels on these, they might have a rough idea. So this is very important to the game. And that is pretty much it, folks. So it does play quite quickly, a lot of meat, and the main part of this game is this kind of area majority control, because as you get, let me just grab a few, as you start loading up, you can see 3 is going to be the magic number. So once you get 3 on there, no one has a chance. But if you do have 2, that's a tie, and you can still do one of the actions. And that's where this reassigning really comes important, because if you decide, right, you've only got 1, am I going to move it, am I going to keep it, because when they do their action, suddenly I'm the majority. But what if this player comes in and they decide to put 2, and then this player does their action, and you're like, oh damn, I'm still not using this guy, and you know, I want to get another dude, so am I going to move him and try and do something else? So it's this constant battle as you go around the board, and that oil is really scarce, because you need to ship things to get oil onto your company, and then you need that oil to be able to spend in technologies before they get too expensive, because you need these cards here to set collect. But equally you can go and drill oil, which gets you these symbols at the bottom, which is great, but then you're diminishing the oil from the bag, which is speeding up the game. So it all interconnects really well. So if you like what you see, check this one out. I am really enjoying it at the moment. There we go, folks.